Welcome to Valaction Continuous Improvement's presentation about 5S and visual management. This DVD is part of our lean training system, so there is a lot of companion information available on our website at www.valaction.com. Some of it is premium, but there's also a lot of free supporting content that can help you get more out of the video you are about to watch. I am Jeff Hajek, the owner and founder of the company and the award-winning author of What Do You Mean I Gotta Be Lean? Thanks in advance for watching. In this presentation, you will learn how to create an effective workspace through the use of 5S principles, and about the benefit of using visual controls to help make decisions when managing your process. So a good place to start is to jump right into things and explain what 5S is and what the 5S's are. 5S is basically a philosophy about creating a workspace that supports your processes. Not surprisingly, there are 5 S terms that are used to help remember the parts of the system. Sorting is getting rid of unnecessary clutter. Straightening is finding homes for everything. Scrubbing is making the workplace spotless as well as making it easy to keep clean. Standardizing is locking all the locations in place. And finally, the hardest of the S's, sustaining. Before I move on to the next slide, I want to draw your attention to the SG2 icon in the upper left of the screen. As I mentioned in the introduction, this DVD is part of our lean training system, which includes student guides. If you have one, the icons are a convenient way to synchronize it with this DVD. A quick way to describe 5S is that it is a place for everything and everything in its place. While that's a good summary of what 5S is, it hardly scratches the surface of why you should focus on adding the philosophy to your workspace. So why is 5S promoted as one of the cornerstones of an effective lean culture? First of all, it has proven its effectiveness. A well-organized work area supports a process better than a cluttered one. It takes less time to do work because there is not as much searching and there are shorter distances to the most commonly used items. It also means better quality as clutter and dirt don't affect processes. Second, people can work together better. Because the work area is standardized, anyone can step in and know exactly where things go. If you have ever had to fill in for an absent coworker or had someone fill in for you, you know the impact that migrating tools can have on a process. But in lean organizations, the mobility is not just limited to absences. Teams have to be flexible. Job rotation is common when production is adjusted to meet changing demand. Plus, good lean managers move people around to keep them sharp and prevent boredom, as well as to get fresh eyes on processes to speed up improvements. Cross-training is much easier when a work area is standardized. 5S also makes a good first impression. Obviously, customers like to see an organized, clean workplace. You probably make assessments yourself about the quality of an organization when you go into stores or restaurants or hire professionals like plumbers. Organization is an indicator of effectiveness. But as an employee, it is not only customers that you need to impress. You also may have bankers or potential investors coming through. Would you have a good feeling about giving money to a company that looked chaotic and disorganized? And consider new hires. If you want to get the cream of the crop of new coworkers, you have to show them that they won't be struggling if they take a job working with you. If they see you scrambling to find parts or tools or files when they tour their potential new work area, they may hold out for a different offer. And finally, 5S reduces stress. Think about how you feel when you go to find a tool and it is not where you thought it was, or someone borrows something and puts it back in the wrong location. Now think about when those things happen if you're on a tight deadline or if you have an angry customer on the phone. Not having the right tools right when you need them can spike your blood pressure. Now that we have a better understanding of what you can get from 5S, let's talk a bit about the background of the philosophy. While workplace organization has been around for a long time, the specific concept of 5S comes out of Toyota's early improvement efforts. Many of the lean practices that Toyota has used over the years to great success rely on 5S to function properly. And obviously, because Toyota is a Japanese company, it makes sense that the original terms were in Japanese. Unfortunately, translation is not an exact science and it gets even more imprecise when you are limited to words that start with the letter S. As a result, there are many more than 5 S terms floating around the lean community. The 5 that Valaction uses are just one possible combination. You are likely to see many other mix and match configurations from the column at the right. Don't get wrapped around the axle about using a specific set of terms though, especially if you change jobs and end up somewhere that uses a different group than you're used to. Just keep the underlying principles in mind and you'll still make good progress. Let's talk now about the terms in some more detail. The first one is sort. It is the act of getting all the clutter out of your work area, separating the necessary from the unnecessary. Think of layers when you sort, something like an onion. The items closest to you should be the ones you use most frequently. The things near you, but out of arm's reach or in drawers, should be the stuff that you use less frequently. And the items you seldom use should be moved another layer out to a central location. By the way, I'm not a big fan of drawers in production areas. They seldom hold items that can't be stored at the point of use, and often become a collection point for clutter. I have several rules of thumb for deciding if something is needed or not. First, if you don't remember something even being in your work area, move it out. This often happens with items that are stored in those drawers that I don't like or in cabinets. Likewise, if you can't remember what an object is used for, or if you can't even identify what it is, take that as a good indicator that it's not needed. Layers of dust also indicate that an item could probably be moved out without affecting production. And even if none of these other tests apply, consider whether you are likely to use the item in the next 30 days. If you don't think you will, move it out. Now, saying move it out is far easier than actually moving something out. Sorting can present a significant emotional and psychological hurdle to some people. The underlying issue is fear. People are scared that they will get rid of something that they need, and it will make their jobs harder down the road. But in many cases, this fear is grossly overblown. Consider, for example, old manuals. I suspect that there will be good reasons to keep archives of old documentation, but you probably don't need them scattered around the company, and you certainly don't need them stashed in a corner. The fact is, if you have items stored like they are in this picture, you'd probably never find them when they are needed anyway. Unless there is a really good reason to keep something, get rid of it. If the items are of no value to anyone else, put a dumpster to good use. As a side note, in this pile were several boxes of 5¼ inch floppy disks. And this picture was taken about 15 years after the 3½ inch disk drive came out. It is surprising how long unnecessary items can take up space. But you will come across some items that do have value, possibly just not to you. Or you will have a big stash of supplies that you do use, just more than you would need in the near future. Those items should be moved out of your immediate work area. You want the items nearest you to be the things that are most critical to your process. Again, think layers. The less likely you are to need something in the near future, the further it should be away from you. You generally have two options here. The first is to move the items to a central, well-organized storage area. The other option is a red tag area. Now, as I have mentioned, there's a lot of emotion involved in the sorting step. One way to combat the bad feelings is to use red tags. A red tag is simply a visual indicator that helps determine if an item is needed or not. The process is rather simple. Start off by identifying any item that you don't think is needed. In most cases, the thing in question will not have a permanent marked location. The next step is to tag the item. There are commercially available red tags with wire twists, or you can make your own such as I did here. Either way, the red tag does the same thing. It calls attention to an item and asks people to confirm whether it is needed or not. Note that the tag I made is simple. Most commercially available ones are more detailed. The key is to make sure that the information on the tag matches your red tag process, or it will create confusion. Obviously, you wouldn't need to red tag an item if you were the only person who worked in an area, but it is a good practice to do whenever a space is shared. After tagging the item, leave it in the work area for review. Your red tag process should specify how long the review period is. The point of the red tag is to call attention to the item and give people a chance to claim it. The red tag acts as a visual that shows immediately that somebody is questioning whether they should get rid of the piece of equipment. If, in fact, you do need the item, there's a fee for keeping it though. You have to find and mark a permanent home for it. We'll detail how to go about doing that later in the standardization step. If you don't need the item, simply do nothing. After the disposition date marked on the tag is reached, the item should be removed from the work area. You'll need a process that clearly defines who is responsible for making this happen in a timely manner. At this point, you may be wondering what happens to all of the items that you pull out of your work area after they are red tagged. Obviously, many of them will still have value to someone else, so they should not just go into a dumpster. If the item is needed for the process, but only once in a while, it should be moved to a central location. This would include things like replacement printer cartridges or equipment used for monthly testing and production tools. If the items are not used by you but still have value, they should go to the red tag area. The red tag area is basically an organized swap meet. Because everyone in the company knows about the centralized red tag area, there's a constant flow of items in and out. One key that many companies miss, though, is that the red tag area must be managed well. If it isn't, it will quickly become a dumping ground. Red tag areas should be organized, and they should be reviewed so that stagnant items don't sit taking up space for years. And of course, some items will have no value to the company and must be disposed of. Many of these things will end up as scrap, but sometimes the item will be of use to a person outside of your organization and can be sold, or even given away to employees.